God is still speaking. This is a central teaching in our United Church of Christ denomination. And it tells you something important about our approach to faith. Our faith is in an ever-living and an ever-loving and an ever-liberating God, who is both beyond any human understanding and yet intimately involved in the very beings of all created beings. And God is still speaking means that we are open to how God's involvement evolves as we humans change and evolve throughout our lives and through the generations. And this means that we can be inspired by the biblical testimonies of those who have wrestled with the revelations of God's involvement with creation. And at the same time, we can be on the lookout for the ways that God has continued to reveal God's self. And how does God reveal God's self? Well, that's part of what we're exploring these weeks together. I want to say it's by supporting and urging and challenging humanity in all of our struggle to learn and to live out what is true and good and what truly sets us free. So, what is that? What's true? What's good? How is God still speaking? And how do we know? So these are ultimate questions. These are enduring questions. And these are urgent questions. So among the many crises of our times is a crisis of knowing. How do we know what's true and what isn't? How do we discern whom to trust or not to trust? Who is telling the truth and who is telling a lie? And what's the right way to respond? How do we know what's good in the moment? What's the right thing to do and the wrong? And all of this has gotten all the more complicated, and we can call it a crisis, because, well, among other things, we are living in an age of pocket audio-visual communication devices that double as addictive hallucination machines. Is that fair? Is that fair? And from 1 second to the next, we can go from real-time data of air quality measurements in Melbourne, Australia, to a deep fake video that half of all viewers swear is the truth, followed by a real video that half of all viewers swear is fake. And then we can hop onto a chat with an artificial intelligence algorithm that's aping the words of a human therapist. Or if you prefer, of Jesus, there's Jesus chat, there's Buddha chat. And then the next moment, we can call a real live human being who we love and we know and who lives a continent away. And we're living in an age of hyper-partisan info bubbles and outrage echo chambers and cocoons of curated confirmation bias and of platforms that are competing to cash in on our inclination to rubberneck crash sites and our desire to ogle back alley brawls and ticketed prize fights and the perverse enjoyment that humans can sometimes take in the spectacle of clashing worldviews and the self-righteous satisfaction in seeing one's opponents exposed to be the deluded dupes they are or the raging hypocrites they are. All, of course, ignoring how that may be true of us. And those who rise to the top of this fraught and flashy hall of mirrors are very often those who are most masterful at manipulation, you may have noticed. Manipulation of our attention, manipulation of our emotion, manipulation of our very sense of reality. And this seems to be the world of Pontius Pilate. What is truth anyway? And that's how that line in the Gospels really was. It's like rolling his eyes. Here is a cynical man of the world. What's truth? Truth, goodness. Pilate just did what was expedient for himself when presented with Jesus and his claim to truth. He was among those who were willing to say one thing now and the opposite tomorrow and call both truth, if that's convenient, or to condemn one thing yesterday and praise it today and call both good, if that's convenient and expedient for one's self-interest. And the outcomes of all of this are dehumanization and demonization, not treating other people as full and real human beings, and oversimplification of what's actually true in this complex world of ours, and self-justification and hypocrisy, and a whole lot of lies and half-truths that are gaining traction. So in other words, this is all just another turning of the wheel of human sin. And at the same time, all of these screens can lead us to receiving glimpses of genuine human experiences. These are tremendous gifts. And we have access to perspectives that are very different from our own. And we can access artifacts created hundreds of years ago that are stored in archives thousands of miles away and experience that human connection across time and across space. We can receive moments of genuine connection and inspiration and true acts of beauty between living and breathing souls. And we can collaborate and we can find community with others across time and distance. And so, in other words, our present condition with the internet and these devices and everything else is not just teeming with sin and villainy, but it's both ends. It's all of the above. There's both truth and falsehood. There's both goodness and evil. There's everything in between. It's all flowing through our screens. And so it's all quite human. It's all too human. In many ways, it's very new, kind of the crises of knowing in our time, because of this real sci-fi communication technology that is brought to you by quantum mechanics and neural network algorithms. But at its heart, it's nothing new, right? We humans tend to do this with the things that we invent. It's a double-edged sword. Since humans have developed language, we have been able to use symbols to both tell the truth and to lie. Most mythologies, ancient mythologies throughout the world, have stories about the one who invented language is also the one who invented lying. And it's never been easy to figure out what is true and what is good. And this is part of why we need our wisdom traditions. The world is a complicated and confusing place. And people can be manipulative and mean and misguided. And we are fundamentally limited beings, even if we may delude ourselves into thinking we aren't. And there are things we can understand. It's pretty amazing. There is plenty about the world that we can learn to be true. Right? We have these pocket hallucination devices because of quantum mechanics. Like, people have figured out really amazing things about the universe. And there are so many of every generation, every place and time, everywhere, who are earnest and genuine in the pursuit of the truth, in the pursuit of what is good. There are trustworthy guides in this world, and we do have an inner compass. And through it all, it's true now as it was true before, God is still speaking. And what's important above all else as people of faith is that we stay earnest and genuine in seeking out how God is still speaking and still pursue what is true and what is good as best as we can. So are you willing to do that? Are you willing to believe that God is still speaking, somehow through all the tumult and all the strife? Are you willing to believe that we can do better than this? We are better than this. Are you willing to not get cynical and not get hard-hearted as maybe the ways of the world are trying to make us? To not despair? Are you willing to believe that there is a truth that can set us free today as in yesterday, and that will be true tomorrow? Free from this constricted web of sin. And do you know that that way can be found through the way of Jesus? So as followers of Jesus, these kinds of questions are the kinds of things that we should always try to keep before us, especially when we're trying to discern earnestly what is true and what is good, especially as we're scrolling through our screens or flipping through the channels, and we may lose touch with that inner compass. Okay, how can I figure out what is true here and what's false? How can I discern what is good here and what isn't? What other information do I need? What other perspectives do I need? And how can I live in the way of Jesus in response? Does this help me to grow in my love of God and my love of others? Because that is the truth that sets us free. Is this helping to produce the fruits of the Spirit in my life? Is this promising to lead us to the better angels of our nature? How can I respond in a way that shows my care for what is good and what is true? And how can I prioritize what Jesus teaches us to prioritize? This unconditional love of God. Not only for me, but for you and for you and for everybody. Taking the log out of my own eye before I help my neighbor take the speck out of theirs. Looking out, especially for those who are being trampled by our blind spots, those whose stories are not being told, the least of these, who Jesus identified with, who always suffer the most. So this takes discipline, to have integrity of the heart and integrity of the soul. It takes discipline to have integrity of the mind as well. But I know it's true. And I know that there is a truth that can set us free. And I really thank God for all of the genuine souls who are staying true to that as best we can, right? And I thank God for each of you and for all of us, because we're in this together. And we can help each other out to know more deeply what is true, to know more deeply what is good, and to help each other to live that out for the sake of the love and mercy of our Creator as we walk together in this way of Jesus. And so above all, I thank God. Thanks be to God.